watching Biography of the Millennium on A&E as we continue our countdown toward #1, the most influential person of the last 1,000 years. Ferdinand Magellan's dreams may have been fueled by reading the exploits of this man, the Venetian merchant Marco Polo, perhaps the most famous travel writer in history. Polo journeyed to Mongol China in 1271 and stayed nearly 20 years. His book, The Travels of Marco Polo, was filled with fantastic stories and the first maps of Asia ever seen in the West. Polo's adventures ignited European interest in the Orient and inspired generations of explorers to come. Number 53 on our list is considered the greatest woman scientist in history, Madame Marie Curie. Together, she and her husband, Pierre, would lay the groundwork for the study of radiation.
She was a very special lady. She was the first to isolate a radioactive element, and then she discovered radium. And that was a profound contribution.
The discovery of these new elements led to the 1903 Nobel Prize for Physics for Pierre and Marie, the first time the award had ever been won by a woman. Over the past century, the use of X-rays and nuclear medicine has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Tragically, Curie's discovery would lead to her death. She died of leukemia brought on by overexposure to radiation. Today, her notebooks remain under lock and key, still lethally radioactive.
What kind of a people do they think we are? Is it possible they do not realize that we shall never cease to persevere against them until they have been taught a lesson which they and the world will never forget?
The difference between great and ordinary statesmen is not intelligence, but vision and courage.
The invincible Sir Winston Churchill. In a life that spanned 9 decades, Sir Winston saw it all. Everything from the cavalry charge to thermonuclear weapons. And when World War II erupted, the British turned to Churchill for leadership.
Churchill's combination of sheer courage, relentless energy, and the fact that he was a military man who knew an immense amount about the art of war enabled Britain to survive at a point when I think any other leader would have given in.
Miraculously, Britain held under the bulldog leadership of Winston Churchill.
It is difficult to imagine any of the available leaders who could have rallied Britain in 1940 the way Churchill did.
Lift up your heart. All will come right out of the depths of sorrow and of sacrifice. Will be born again the glory of mankind.
He was a 19th century romantic at a time when that kind of heroic approach worked well in the world. I don't know if it would work today. This is not a time of great heroes, but Churchill believed in heroes, and he consciously set out in that mold, and it was an extraordinary achievement.
It has been called the deadliest disease on Earth. Over the past millennium, hundreds of millions of people have died of smallpox. There has never been a cure, but thanks to this man, Edward Jenner, smallpox can be prevented.
Jenner made the very advantageous discovery that milkmaids who would get cowpox from the cows they were milking, when a smallpox epidemic hit the town, seemed to be okay.
He observed that the cowpox protected the maids from smallpox epidemics. In 1796, Jenner inoculated a young boy with cowpox, and it worked. He called his new procedure vaccination, from the Latin word vacca, for cow. Within a few years, it began saving thousands of lives. The last reported natural case of smallpox was in 1977 in Somalia. For the first time in history, a killer disease had been wiped off the earth.
You see, Margaret Sanger, without her, I couldn't be Dr. Ruth Westheimer. She was a wonderful, courageous woman who really influenced work on that contraceptive pill, which certainly has changed the entire world.
Margaret Sanger, number 50 on our list, worked as a nurse in the slums of New York City. She was appalled by what she saw: the misery of unwanted pregnancies, the lack of sex education for men and women.
Margaret Sanger understood that we couldn't really have freedom from the skin out until we had freedom from the skin in. That is, until women could control our own reproductive lives.
Birth control teaches parents to bring into the world children by choice rather than by chance.
As the world's population continues to grow, Sanger's work goes on through her Planned Parenthood Foundation.
Mikhail Gorbachev was learning the hard lesson of democracy today, that giving people freedom means they are free to turn against you.
He's the founding father of Glasnost and the last leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev.
What I find fascinating about Gorbachev is that he was a good human being who brought about results that he didn't really want. Gorbachev wanted to reform the communist system, and he wanted to modernize the communist system. He didn't want to overthrow the communist system.
When Gorbachev took power in 1985, he set out to preserve communism by reshaping the crippled Soviet economy. But then everything changed.
And once he opened up the prison doors of the communist society and said, let's have glasnost, you couldn't give people 50% freedom. His importance is undeniable, but the impact of what he did was not what he intended.
History will note that he did a lot intentionally. His role is as a catalyst for the most important event of the century's end, and that was the dismantling, almost bloodlessly, of what Ronald Reagan called the evil empire.